everyone, and welcome to Talk of the Town. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season, a great Christmas. Happy New Year. This is 2014. Can't believe it. You can just imagine. Let's say hello to our underwriters, Jeff Cohen, One Stop Painting. They do it all. Matter of fact, Jeff will be at the house next week, and he's doing the upstairs. I can't wait. He's done other things for us, and he's done a great job. Brewster, PC Solutions with Wrestling Brewster. He has a show right here on PAC TV. My husband, Ken, produces it for him. It's a great show. You'll learn a lot. Attorney Trifletti and Costa right here in Plymouth on Long Pond Road. And underwriters, David and Kevin Gallerani, Cape Auto and Cape Auto Service, right here in Plymouth. I love David and Kevin. Now, you know you can call 508-830-3971 tonight. We have a lot of information. I have two town officials with me tonight, and they've brought some great information for you. It's about the potential, what's planned for the courthouse, hopefully. We'll see. We're going to talk about it. They're reaching out. They're getting the information out. And to say that I respect and admire them both is a great understatement. Please welcome Plymouth Town Manager Melissa Arrighi, and Planning Board member and committee member on the courthouse, Mark Garrett. Welcome, guys.
Hi, Karen.
Thank you so much for coming. And I know it's so important to you to get this information out. And, you know, I'm going to leave a lot of this to you because it's step by step. But you could inform the viewers how this whole process first started.
Sure. This has been ongoing for, feels like much longer, but quite a few years now. Town meeting supported, through a community preservation article, the acquisition of the 1820 courthouse and the commissioners building from the county. And that was somewhat an extended negotiation period, but ultimately we were able to purchase that building. Town meeting supported it with some additional funding that would be for some initial preservation of the building.
Yes.
That was then turned over to the Redevelopment Authority for a 99-year lease, and they were going to make their best efforts to find a functional use for it, as well as to get the building in better shape. Unfortunately, what was happening at the time is grant funding was really drying up, and they weren't successful ultimately in acquiring the grants that they had hoped for and that we all thought that they would get. So it's about a year and a half ago now, we met with the Redevelopment Authority in executive session with the selectmen, and the idea of should this building or could this site become a government corridor, a government center? It wasn't born at that time. It was just discussed because actually when you talk to some longtime Plymouthians, Reverend Gomes had this idea and talked about it years ago.
That's true.
Enzo Monti in North
Yes.
Plymouth talked about this idea years ago, and there were others. So once and for all, the selectmen said, maybe we should actually explore it. And one of the moments I'm proud of is when Chairman Muratori held that historic meeting that included Community Preservation Committee, the Planning Board, members from the Building Committee, the Finance Committee, the School Committee, as well as the selectmen. I think I'm probably missing a group. There was Historic District. No, there was a representative there, but
Yes.
they weren't part. And everybody got together at this great meeting and said, should we explore this? Should we support it? Should we answer this question once and for all? Could this be a government center? And by government center, we were initially looking at both town hall services that you have there now, as well as school administration, which you know is kind of tucked away in West Plymouth. We went to town meeting and we asked for $75,000 to have this question answered, is what would it take to make this town hall, and would it make sense to make this government center? That answer has come back, and I think the reason that it's important both for me to be here and at every forum I can be at is we made a real commitment, and town meeting supported us when we said, let us spend the $75,000 on this study, and we will come back to you with those results, regardless of what they are. We will come back and present that at town meeting. We had hoped to do that for the fall town meeting. We did not make that deadline, although we came very close, I would say, working with this 1820 Courthouse group we've put together. And now here we are for Springtown meeting with the results.
Yes, and I think it was wise to wait for the following town meeting, and it served you well. And so now we have the plans, and I've seen a little bit of them, and they are wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. But before we start anything, and I will mention this again, from my understanding, the current townhouse, the town hall, is not ADA compliable. And you're going to be asked to move within 3 to 5 years. The state is going to come in. They've been threatening to do this. And it's like right at the door of doing this and asking Plymouth Town's officials to move from your current location. What will that mean by purchasing land, building a brand new building? What does that entail? I mean, to me, I was told that would be over $100 million.
Well, let's take a couple steps back. You are correct that 11 Lincoln Street does not meet code standards of today. And part of that reason is because the building has always been a government building, and we've always sort of gotten away with not really changing the use, a trigger to cause you to bring a building up to code. But let's talk a little bit about 11 Lincoln Street. It was built as a school. There are people in this town that are still alive that graduated from that when it was the high school. 11 Lincoln Street, over the course of time, has been asked to do a lot of things that it wasn't designed for. In 1953, it was made the townhouse, and it has been that use ever since. And at the time, the population of the town was probably in the neighborhood of, I think, 13,500 people. We're now a town of 60,000. Back in, I believe it was 1998, and Jim, if you could put up the first slide, it would be a little bit helpful, because that's a kind of a fact sheet. The town spent $2.2 million to retrofit the building to bring it up to some reasonable level, not yet fully to code of today, to extend its life. We also gained, I believe it was 12,000 square feet of additional space in that building, in the basement and on the third floor. And part of that additional space was that the school department vacated the building and moved to South Middle Road. So we ended up with something on the order of about 28,000 square feet, 40,000 square feet of building to service 48,000 people.
At that time.
At that time. Historically, there are documents, Plymouth compacts, facility management reports that have been done that have cited 11 Lincoln Street as being inadequate. It has always been inadequate. The architect did a survey of the building. There are boxes in the hallways. There are boxes of files in offices, not in file cabinets. The archives are woefully undersized. This is the repository of the public record for the town of Plymouth, and it's not something that you can just throw this stuff away. And a lot of it can't be transferred electronically easily. So we have a building that we have been living out of for a long time, and not by my opinion, but from people who are in the know of facilities and facility use. And historically, this building has always been undersized and not adequate to support the uses we've asked it to do or function as, and we've been asking it to function for an awful lot. Structurally, it's a great building. No doubt. It's a beautiful building. I love it. But as a functional institutional center, it just does not make it. There's parking problems. We have been discussing traffic relative to Nathaniel Morton School and the town hall usage. It's a building, it's a setting that just isn't working for a 60,000 person town. And in a downtown that we're trying to revitalize, it sits off on the side, unseen, unknown.
I agree with you, Mark. And is the school looking at that facility if the courthouse goes through it? Have any decisions been made yet?
As an alternative site?
Yes, because they're in the hinterlands.
They are in the hinterlands, but and they've looked at it. It could work for them, but they also understand that it's a potential revenue stream if it was sold off to underwrite this project or other projects in the downtown.
Yes, either way.
And I should note, we are getting the building appraised, so we have a number, a value that we can assign as a potential cost offset.
Make beautiful condos.
Certainly would fit in with the neighborhood.
Yes. Have you seen what they've done to the old armory? Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I can't wait for that. But right now we're talking about the courthouse, which is a beautiful building in itself and befitting of a government. And why don't you walk us through what's the plans and what you've discussed so far?
Well, some of the things that are nice about what Durkee Brown, Faveros, and Werenfels, who are the architectural firm that worked on this, came up with, is they gave this building both plenty of storage, significantly more parking. Currently at the 11th Lincoln Street, we have 4 to 6 spots that are dedicated for residents, taxpayers, visitors to the building. Whereas in the new plan, it comes with between 50 and 60 parking spots that would be dedicated for those customers. Employee parking would be off to the side, either over behind the old police station or towards the left if you're looking at the building at Burial Hill. Mm-hmm. In addition, Plymouth has quite a few, more than that. You have, very active boards and committees that get involved in their governance. Well, in order to do that and do it effectively, they need to have meeting space. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that this design came up with was, I put it down to, 5 meeting rooms from a 1,500 square foot, which is the main meeting room that would fit over 120 people, to 4 other very good-sized meeting rooms that could accommodate all the mm-hmm. committees and boards that right now compete for space. Now, depending on if this project is successful, we could continue to use, depending on what 11 Lincoln becomes, we could continue to use those meeting rooms as well, particularly if we shared that function, if that was a school administration function. Mm-hmm. But the plan for this plan that they've come up with would restore the 1820 courthouse portion. Then it would have, and that would house the clerk's office, archives, meeting room space. Then there is a glass atrium connector. What that does is it respects the historic beauty mm-hmm. of the 1820 building, but also is a nice, avenue, a nice way to
transition.
Transitional gateway
into the 45,000 square foot addition.
Yeah.
Now the addition has the basement level would be archive space for the clerk's office, the treasurer's, all your mechanicals, archives for the building inspector, and a lot of those records, including planning, is what Mark was referring to, that are very difficult to store electronically. I mean, you need to be able to have access to those.
In this day and age, you need room for that.
The proposed first floor would house more archive space, as well as information technology and all the equipment that comes with that, a meeting room, the Recreation Department, and Marine and Environmental Affairs. And certainly these are just preliminary plans. This is not set in stone. Some of this, if we were to move forward, would get moved around. The proposed second floor, which is coming in from the back of the building, where a lot of the visitor parking will be, because that will be the main entrance. Immediately, you walk in on the ground level. Immediately on your left-hand side is the main meeting room space. What's nice about that is you can hold these evening meetings, but you can cool or close off the rest of the building if that's the only meeting room being used. The offices that would be on that floor are offices that are visited the most: the treasurer collector's office, the assessor's office, a procurement department. So it makes the way they've laid it out makes a lot of sense in terms of you coming into the building. And what's also, I think, helpful is that you can come in that main entrance and you can walk all the way through to the new atrium, the transition space, and then into the old historic portion, the 1820 portion. On the third floor, using the elevator or the stairs, and this retains some of the beautiful stairs that are in the 1820, would have the finance department, health department, planning, and the building inspector's office. And again, there's meeting room space on that floor. On every floor, there's meeting space. And finally, on the fourth level is the human resource department, the engineering department, and selectman town manager's space.
Excellent.
In meeting room space, in the original design, they also put like a public roof terrace that could be accessed by the public. It couldn't just be accessed by the selectman's area, the town manager's area. It would be accessed by the public because it gives you a beautiful view, both of the 1820, and it gives you a water view. But it's an option. Certainly, it's a beautiful option, but it's something that can easily be removed from the design.
Sounds wonderful, and it's much needed space that we need.
Could I just speak? I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't want the point to be lost. We're talking about the storage space, and we're talking about it's difficult to transfer some of the documentation to electronic files. There's also another consideration. The laws have not yet stated that electronic documentation is legal documentation. Many times you still have to present the original hard copy, especially of plans, where we transfer plans all the time electronically for ease of use and things like that. But when you're in a legal situation, possibly litigation, possibly court, it's got to be the stamped plan.
Yes.
You can't stamp an e-plan. You have to stamp the document, because that still is the legal default for any decision or any information transfer.
Well, the last time I went downstairs where the other offices are, there's finance down there, and there are offices in the middle of the floor between very high boxes. Now, these boxes are filled with documents, so they have to walk around, work in between. You're running out of room. And, I mean, at one time, wasn't the emergency facility down there, too? And they
Must be before my time. Retirement board used to be down there. The retirement services.
Eons ago. Emergency management.
Right.
Yeah, a long time ago. But I don't know how they did it all, because it's a very small space. Now, Mark, you were going to present something you had.
In the flow of the discussion, I mean, we can talk a little bit about considerations. And again, one of the things I think Melissa and I are trying to do tonight is we're trying, in this and many other forum, to get the information out, because ultimately this is a decision for town meeting members, and we're not that naive. It's a possibility that it could go to ballot, depending on what happens at town meeting. Our charge from town meeting was to do a feasibility study.
Right.
And get the results of that feasibility study out, and that's what we're trying to do this evening and for the next month and a half. I think we have a lot of meetings with town meeting members, the precinct chairs, the elected boards. There are going to be informal coffees. There are going to be, I know the term presentation forum may be not the most popular thing to use right now, but we are going to be sitting with caucuses, because it's important that we get everybody information, because it's everybody's decision. It's not the decision of this committee or this working group. It's not the decision necessarily of the elected officials. This is a decision that requires town meeting approval and public support. So I think that's very important for everybody to understand. At this point, I mean, in full disclosure, I'm probably supportive of the project, given the benefits that we're going to gain, and I understand the cost, because at the time when the $35 million estimate came out, I was quoted in the paper as saying that was a sobering figure. And it is a sobering figure. It's a very expensive figure. And we as a town, we as individuals have to make a decision. Is there a benefit to expending that amount of money on this capital project, along with other capital projects that are going on in town, given the growth of this community, where we are today and where we're going to be? We have to make that decision. And this is a discussion. This is a debate. This is sharing of ideas. And that is incredibly important. We're not. This is not a group trying to ram an idea down somebody's throat.
I understand that.
Well, I want everybody to understand that, because there's been a lot of stuff flying around, casually. And our job, as authorized by town meeting, is to do the feasibility study and get the results.
And present it.
Get the results out there,
Yeah.
so the town meeting and the general public can weigh in.
Well, can I ask you, as a planning board member, I mean, a ballpark figure, I hear the phone. That's a good thing.
They called complaining they couldn't read the number.
Oh, how much is it going to cost to buy land and build a new facility? Because you're going to have to do it.
Well, I think the question, I think the 35 million, we've run that number, and it's virtually the same, whether we purchase a new site and build strictly new, or we use this site, which we own.
It's virtually the same?
Yeah, because what we have to do is the building the courthouse building and the structure requires demo and retrofitting to bring it up to a standard that can be used. And that's expensive, as is purchasing property of a size with access.
I thought it was more. I was told it was going to be more. Or am I confusing that?
The numbers that we saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, but David Peck, who sits on ZBA, who sits on the building committee, sat down with an estimator. I mean, this is part of his professional work. Sat down with an estimator and verified a conclusion which I drew early on, that this is a pretty accurate number for a facility of this type, whether it's a retrofit or a new site.
Well, I must be confusing it with the redevelopment authority's plan, because that was coming in for well over $100 million.
I can't speak to that at this point.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can tell you, though, as we look around this community for land and a suitable site and what that alone will cost, those numbers fluctuate. We had recently been looking at maps where there would be available space within a pretty wide range of the downtown area. It's becoming more and more difficult to find it. You will note that there's a site, I think there's a for sale sign up now on Oberry Street. It's a good-sized parcel, but it is very expensive because, of course, you're competing with commercial property, and many times these are franchises that can pay a much higher dollar than certainly the town may be willing to spend to go in that location. I think what I'm hearing is, as we present this, and even as I watch the architects present it, is there's a lot of merit to this project. It's in an area of this town that I have never seen the kind of love and commitment for as I've seen in Plymouth for this particular building and this entire location. And what I hear is that people are enthusiastic about what it could possibly do for this downtown area. They like that it will provide significantly more parking. No parking situation is perfect. And one of the things that I keep saying about this is feasibility. if this town decides they would like to move forward with this project, then final design will come at that next stage, and we'll be able to see exactly what the parking plans. Right now, there's a couple options. Both are excellent. Both offer much more parking than you are ever going to see at 11 Lincoln Street.
Well, it's not only that, Melissa and Mark. You know, when you walk downtown and there's tourists in town, they take for granted that that's the government center. They take for granted that that's where our town hall is. And you were right when you said earlier, the town hall right now is tucked away in a little side street that makes it it's congested and whatever. But I understand that there's a process that we have to go through. And if there's, you know, many things you do well, Melissa, that's one of the best things you do, is get the information out. You're very good at that, and you dot your I's and cross your T's, and I appreciate that as a town meeting member. You do give the information, and that's what is needed. Now, you know you can call 830-3971. We'll see if we can answer your questions, not me, but Melissa and Mark, and I'm sure they'll be happy. And I wish you could see this because it is quite beautiful.
It's all on the website.
Kenny, can you get a little, it's on the website,
Yes,
Melissa?
Actually, we're having trouble with the CD that they sent us. So we had a resident, Larry Rosenblum, offer to take a look at that and put it in a format so that we can put the entire presentation onto the website. But right now, you can find quite a bit of information. You can see these kind of plans and designs. And of course, as always, like I've offered to everybody, stop in. We have the book available, the full plan available at the library.
Oh,
the town
very
hall.
good.
We'll make it available to individuals. They can come in and sit with me. Certainly the committee members have been wonderfully generous about their time. We really would like, as you say, to have as many people as possible know about this information. Yes. One of the things that we didn't mention that we should is, as part of the design, the firm was able to incorporate public bathrooms, something you hear people complain about over and over in Plymouth as they visit the community, in the with an entrance on the outside of the building. So this entire building could be shut down for the weekend, and those bathrooms would be fully accessible.
Is that manned bathroom? Is that going to be taken care of as long as it's open?
Certainly, my recommendation,
yes.
the firm didn't put that in, but my recommendation would be to do something similar to what I've seen when I've gone to other communities,
yes.
is that they do have somebody available in the men's room and in the women's room for cleaning purposes, just to monitor the facility.
Security.
In addition, maybe some kind of private cleaning company. I think all that would have to be given some thought, but certainly we would have support, I believe, from the Visitor Services Board, as well as possibly even the Plymouth Growth and Development Corporation, because they do have, as part of their vision or mission, to be economic development.
Sure, and that's been needed for a long time. You hear a lot of people talk about that. The Redevelopment Authority, too, they talk about Chet, you know, about facilities for the town.
Karen, just another, to follow up on an original comment you made, in terms of looking for alternative siting. Certainly, that can occur. But again, bringing this back to a factual level, if we were to do that, we still own the courthouse. The town owns the courthouse.
And what are you going to do with it?
And it's a town-owned property, and it was purchased, the authorization for the purchase, the rationale for the purchase that went before town meeting was to try to attract a destination to the downtown, to the heart and soul of the downtown, and also to preserve, restore, protect the grand facade that is the front building, the main courthouse. Unfortunately, over the 4+ years that we've been dealing with this, we had hoped to bring in some private investment. The facility has not proven to be attractive. Jimmy, can I have slide 2? With the issue that we deal... That's 1, Jimmy. Thank you. With the issue that we've talked about Lincoln Street fairly extensively. Okay, we have an opportunity here. It wasn't the initial opportunity. It wasn't what we had all thought. But it is evidently clear, and the PRA even agrees with this, that this is not an attractive site for somebody to come in and be able to turn over a profit, which is what they want to do in a reasonable amount of time. The municipal use Melissa had talked about had been discussed by various residents, Reverend Gomes, Enzo Monti, and others, was also a result of a study funded by the PGDC, by the Urban Land Institute, who said that there were two uses. That they after their day-long analysis, talking with stakeholders, there were two uses. High-density residential,
Right.
or a municipal use.
Yes.
So again, we're talking about the possibility of putting an institutional use, a town hall, a municipal government facility, in a building that was once a county courthouse. The uses themselves are really very similar in nature. The kind of traffic is very similar in nature. Transient, people coming in, going out, needing to park, spending a period of time, not the whole day.
Right.
So the usage that this presents as an alternative is very similar to what was going on 10 years ago, 15 years ago in our downtown. And the destination that the courthouse was and a town hall could be, and certainly the mixed use that we had hoped, would draw people to the center of our town and hopefully support the businesses who were very concerned and very impacted by the
terribly.
courthouse leaving.
Yes.
And in a sense, our downtown character has changed a little bit with the
You
types
think?
of businesses, with the types of businesses that left
Yeah.
and have replaced. So again, the $35 million figure is a big nut. I get it. But we have to think about what we're talking about for our downtown. We have to think about what we were trying to accomplish those 5-6 years ago when we authorized the purchase of the building, and what we're trying to get as a result. The original hope didn't pan out. The economy didn't support grants, did not support private investment. We can sit and continue to have to stabilize this building because we own it. I mean, if we don't stabilize it continually, it's going to deteriorate and
That's
possibly fall
right.
down, and then we're going to have other issues. I know there are people who say sell it for $1. I don't know who's going to buy it for $1, and I don't know what they're going to do with it. But when we sell it for $1, we lose control. And if we lose control of this particular site, and I don't think there's a lot of people out there who would say that this isn't a critical site to our downtown, we have to really weigh and balance the cost, the $35 million. I said cost, I understand it's a cost, against the benefits that we can and will realize as this, if this alternative were to proceed.
Well, that's it in a nutshell.
Historically, one of the things that I think is very pleasing about this design is that they were able to incorporate all the space that was needed without affecting the private residents, which are residential homes, which are behind it. I think Donna Curtin, who is with the Plymouth Antiquarian Society, and she sits on the committee, said it the best. This is lovely in many ways because it does have that blend with the neighborhood,
Yep.
a government center. And rather than wiping out a whole corridor and taking it over with a large structure, they were, I think, very pleasingly able to retain those people's homes.
They were
and
sensitive to it.
absolutely.
Yes, and it's a wonderful, beautiful design. I just keep going back to, this is going to have to be done anyway, and I do not want to lose that courthouse. That would be a shame. given what's all around it, the museums, the beautiful structures that are there also, it would be terrible. It would be a loss because, like Melissa said, mark her words, 10 years from now, maybe not even 10 years, people will be saying we shouldn't have taken it down. We shouldn't have sold it or whatever. I mean, there are buildings that people still remember from a long time ago. They're saying that. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, they say it about Nathaniel Morton School. They say it about the Hedge School. They say it about 11 Lincoln Street.
Yeah.
As the school that it was. You know, in the day, it was what it was, and it was significant and important. And this building has been significant to our downtown, and it is the keystone site in our downtown.
I
mean, you have Shirley Square, you have Town Square, get that, but even. And in doing some reading and evaluating the planning of this, as a sidebar note, Brewster Street was really built as a boulevard type street to connect the waterfront with Water Street. That's not me looking at the street and saying that's what I think it was. It is documented. When they laid that street out, it was done because it went from the waterfront up to this area of town, and they built this building in that area because that street was there. So there is a connectivity, and we've had a hard time connecting the waterfront with our downtown.
For years now.
Water Street and Court Street / Main Street kind of run parallel, and that's about all they do.
Yeah.
And the integration of those two has been very difficult, partially because of geography. It's a hill you got to walk up. Nobody likes to walk up a hill, but nonetheless, we still have to deal with that. We have to deal with that issue, and this is one of those. I use the word opportunity, and I say that because we own the building. We have to do something with it. We have to do something positive with it. There is a large contingency that wants to save the building and its facade and its grand nature and architecture. And we have a feasible use. Unfortunately, it's a publicly funded use. And unfortunately, that's the way things are going today. Because if the town doesn't invest in it, we're going to sell it at a great loss. We will have expended money on it to really no avail. And I think, 1.4 million, I think is the number that was authorized. So we've made some investment in it. And again, the question has to become, and my closing statement, I have actually created, I could do it now actually if you want. I think the final question is really this, to give people something to think about. Is it reasonable for the town to invest $30+ million in a project alternative at the courthouse site that meets the objectives of the original purchase as authorized by town meeting and is feasible and meets a long-standing need and continued need on town-owned land in the downtown center of America's hometown? That's the question each town meeting member has to ask themselves, each taxpayer has to ask themselves. I'm not telling you what your answer should be, but that's the question that I think we all have to ask and discuss and debate that. And I think that's really where we are in terms of this whole project, and getting the facts out is the key linchpin to that, and that's what we're trying to do.
So this will be presented at Springtown meeting, and lots of times before that, but formally at town meeting.
We start this week. Tomorrow it goes before Capital Improvements Committee, so you will be able to see that formally. I think that next Tuesday night is the historic bookend meeting, which is all those boards and committees back together again at the selectmen's meeting, where they'll see a condensed version of the presentation. not to vote, but just to listen to all the information, ask questions, start to maybe deliberate a little bit about the question that Mark is posing, which I think is fitting. Following that, it is the Committee of Precinct Chairs. I believe it's that Thursday evening. Advisory and Finance Committee will come at the end of January. And then there'll be small coffee and teas as people would like me or a member of the group to go and present the information a little bit more one-on-one or in smaller group settings. And I believe we have a meeting for the Building Committee coming up as well, but that is mid-February.
Right. They've done an awesome job, the Building Committee. A lot of good people on that. Also, the school department, they've been very helpful. And, as an outsider looking in at the school department, it's a whole different world, the school department, and I'm very aware of that. But they try very hard, and I know that they're looking at it, I can imagine they are, and they're trying to, do their best and get their best option there, and we'll see what happens. But there are buildings to be sold to alleviate some of that money. Let's say the school department came in with you. They could sell the building they're in now across from the airport, and they're practically right on the Carver border. If you have to go, they are way out there. But it's a great building, and I can see that being sold very easily. I can see the townhouse being sold very easily. So there's millions of dollars there. But we'll see what happens. I mean, this is a wait game too. It's not to say it's a game, but it's a wait and see, and let's see what happens.
Well, I'm hopeful that the Community Preservation Committee will be. This has been submitted for funding, between $4 and $5 million worth of funding in a CPC application. They have heard the initial proposal. They'll be reviewing that, and I expect that they will find merit in the project and put an article for town meeting, this upcoming town meeting, that would contribute about $5 million toward the project. If that is the case, I think that will be helpful to the community because, of course, CPA money has already invested in this building.
God love them.
And I do believe that we will have to investigate. When you mentioned, people saying give it away for $1 to a private developer, I think there'll have to be some kind of reimbursement of the funding, the public funding that has already been submitted. Giving it away for $1 is certainly something that you have heard, but the 1.4 that has already been invested in this building would, in my opinion, and I will have to look into this legally, would need to be returned to your community preservation funds.
Not for a lack of trying. The town has really tried getting a private developer. Our chamber has tried getting a private developer. The redevelopment authority has tried themselves, all themselves. Grants, nothing. Nothing. If people think somebody's going to come along and buy that and refurbish it, forget it. Well, it's been 5 years, Melissa.
I think it is a challenging site in terms of private development because there is, if the CPC funds stay invested, then this front building must remain public in some fashion. It must be restored historically and remain open to the public. So if you have a private developer come in, they've got to figure out a way, and certainly it's well beyond my area of knowledge, but they have to figure out a way to leave that building open and accessible to the public. And then certainly they could level the commissioner's building in the back and put in, condo units and high density. And I believe the Urban Land Institute talked about 6 stories.
Yeah, the issue is if you're preserving the courthouse, they still have to get X amount of square feet to make this work. And if they can't get it laterally, they're going to get it vertically. So now we're talking, and I was on the Industrial Lands Committee. We proposed 75-foot height limitations in certain areas of town, not particularly this one. I think we would consider from a planning...
Wasn't that rejected?
It was rejected.
Yes.
I think that from a planning perspective, and also, I don't want to speak for the Board of Appeals, but we would certainly consider relaxing the 35-foot height restriction in this location. But you're talking about a very large building that will dominate.
Yeah, I don't think that'd work, Mark.
I'm not saying whether it would or it wouldn't. I'm telling you what a developer would need
Oh,
to
would
do
do.
that, because they need square footage. They
Yeah.
need number of units. Okay, and if they can't put it this way, they're going to want to put it this
I am
way.
against that, Mark.
Well, that's
I do not want to see that height on that location.
You're upsetting the host.
I obviously am, and that was part of what I wanted to do. No, I get that, but my point is that to do the other.
For the person to make a profit,
Right,
you're
to do
saying that's what they
high
have
density,
to do?
the high density residential, they would have to go vertical, and that's going to be a consideration.
They have to sell the square footage.
Yeah, I get it. No,
Well,
I get it.
they have to have the square footage to sell.
To sell.
Okay.
They have to go this way.
The second problem is selling it. They've got to have it to sell it.
I think the other thing that I'd like to just mention about this project is the importance of Burial Hill.
Yes.
I think that's an area that, I think neglected is strong for me to say. I've only been in your community since 2004. However, there's been a true investment that I've seen in that area over the last 4 years. I mean,
Yes.
look at the group of volunteers that
Yeah,
came
you
out
only-
and
you
worked
only-
so
The
hard there. And
Plantation,
the
what
Friends
they
of Burial
did.
Hill, what the
Yes,
plantation
the Friends
did.
of Burial Hill.
The commitment that town meeting has made with the money they've allowed us to invest in that area, and this will this parking lot that's over on the side, that's not something, regardless of what happens with this project, I'm not sure that parking lot is something that the residents in this town could ever give up, even as a temporary. I mean, that Burial Hill is so important that you always have to have the
Very.
parking right there for people that want to go and pay their respects and visit the site. So I think that's one of the things that this does well, is it will be a strong use during the day of that parking lot and site, but it also provides, in my opinion, a wonderful amount of parking in this whole area
You're
for
correct.
weekends and when it's not
Yes.
being used, and it gives some respect level with what's developed here for Burial Hill.
And it also preserves that parking lot. I mean,
Yes.
From the moment we start, that parking lot remains in place. It will have other uses because it is underutilized at times.
That's true.
But now it will have a potential additional use, but it is preserved for its primary function, which is to service Burial Hill.
Yeah, I did hear from a state person that they were going to, the state was going to fix the road behind there. What's the road? Russell? No.
One that came in.
The one that caved in, what's the name of that street? Where the pole fell.
Where the light pole fell through the sidewalk.
Right there at Burial Hill.
That street.
Okay, not South Russell.
No.
Street?
School?
The one that runs behind me.
Oh, the one that runs by, that's School
Yes,
Street.
School
Yep, I'm
Street.
thinking on the sides of this project. Yep,
Right.
Yep.
The state, we were told privately from a friend, the state has plans to fix that road completely.
That would be very nice.
Wouldn't
I have
that
not
be
heard
nice?
that.
Yeah.
But yes, that's a mess.
It's a mess, and it's on the plans. It's there. I'll tell you who to speak to.
You're going to tell me now during the show
No.
or maybe after the show?
Yeah, but no, that the site, the area begs for this.
So some of the things that have been incorporated into this design are some of the things that the school has done and done very well, which is the whole environmental friendly, trying to look for things that are much more
yes.
energy efficient. So one of the things that they've incorporated here, and once again, I'll show this if it's okay to zoom in on that, is the green roof portion that you see right there. So as you transition from the 1820 into the new square footage, they've put the green roof. That's not something that has to be done. Once again, that's just optional, but I think it's showing this commitment to what we're all looking to do, which is preservation, respect our natural resources, and do everything we can to lower our footprint.
Since you have to water it anyway, what about a garden? What about a garden?
That's certainly something that could be.
I think eventually,
What do you want, tomatoes?
I want tomatoes, but eventually also later, if this goes, I'd like to see solar on some part of that building. That could be done at any time, and you could use it to heat your water in that building or for the lights. self-sufficient. It's just something to think about.
Again,
Not now.
But it's a suggestion that this is not design.
Right.
This is feasibility. This is how do you put the mass on the site and make it work, or how do you put the mass on the site to work? Okay, and you have to answer the question: does it work? Now, if they're not designing energy systems at feasibility level, that's something that comes later.
Yeah.
This is just a
That's
layout.
more in depth.
This is a layout.
Yeah.
We need X amount of square feet. We have to lay that out in an efficient manner. Can it be done? We need parking. Do we have it? Can we protect, preserve the courthouse? Can we utilize it in some fashion as part of the required
Do
square
you
footage?
have room to grow?
Yes.
Yes, because that would be important, because this town is growing, as we all know.
We looked at current square footage, what the space needs were, and then of course we narrowed that list because people put in things that maybe that could be pulled back a little bit. So we were
Sure.
able to successfully pull back some of that, but it did take a look at growth of employees.
Yeah.
Future needs in terms of the meeting space that I mentioned earlier.
Right.
Now, certainly, I think when some
Storage.
people hear the number of employees that are in town hall now and what the projected number would be, I need to do a better job at saying projected years from now. I don't see in the immediate future, 2 or 3 years, that we're going to have
No.
any kind of growth in the number of employees. There may be positions here and there as things change. You need an energy officer, you need technology. There may be some of that. But we were trying to look 10, 15, 20 years down the road when we looked at employee growth.
Well, you have to. And also space. You need extra space because, Plymouth is so large, but there's so many places that you can build. So many. I know Pine Hills wants to expand. Then we have Makepeace, and land becomes available at which pushes out all our services and whatnot, but it's extra tax dollars. At least it's tax dollars. So you have to have plenty of room because, Larry talks about how fast our town is growing. We just went through a census, every 10 years, and he had to put on a new precinct. And, I don't want to go through that again.
That did cause a little bit of a stir.
Yeah.
One of the things that I could envision, if this is something Plymouth moves forward with, then the 1820 Courthouse is just such a showpiece that you see when you go into some historic communities when they have a beautiful government
Facility,
center,
yeah.
a town hall, or a facility for their governance, that when you go in there is some kind of greeting area. One of the things that I find surprising about the Plymouth Town Hall when I first came here and interviewed all those years ago is that when you walk in, you're confronted with a choice. Where do you go? Where it seems that I think in this kind of setting, particularly with the historic building where you would have visitors mostly walking, that there could be a program that we could put in place. I think of when you walk into the Council on Aging and you have the volunteer staff that greet you right away, that direct you where you go. They're helpful. I would love to have
That would
something
be
like
wonderful.
that. And we have so many seniors in this community, or not just seniors, people that aren't working, that have time on their hands, that would be willing, or that are
Sure.
willing to donate to Plymouth.
Absolutely.
And it would just be a wonderful thing
I
to
would
have.
do that.
Tours of the meeting room, I think, would be important. I think that we have to hold that room somewhat sacred. We have to be careful about what we do there. We'd have to come up with a town plan for that. But I certainly think that people should be able to tour that facility and see what it's like.
Not free.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know how to respond to that here on TV, but
No, I think a little free.
a change jar or something.
Yeah, change jar. Oh, if they want to see the courthouse, they can pay. No, I know. I don't know. I'm
Look,
trying.
you've made us both so quiet.
Well, no. As she alludes into cost offset again, I think what has to be understood about this is that this working group, I always call it a committee, and I'm told don't call it a committee because
Oh,
it's not
really?
a town
Working
committee.
group.
This working group realizes, again, I go back to that $35 million figure, and we understand the magnitude of it. we are working seriously at looking at alternative funding mechanisms, not grants, but we're looking at town-owned properties that could be and should be sold, not just paid lip service to, that's on the market.
Sell it.
Well, if it's on the market for 6 years and nobody's paying the freight, okay, well, it's not, it's just idle land. It's surplus. I think we're trying to make a legitimate effort to get what surplus property that we can sell off the books,
yeah.
And get those sites utilized in their own right, realize some income from them, and have that income available to soften that $35 million figure.
Well,
and that's the best we can do. The reality is this town is growing and growth costs money. That's just the way it
What
is.
does the planning board always say? They sit there in certain meetings that they put aside for it, and they say, what does this town want to be? What kind of town do you want it? Do you want to look like XYZ town? I don't think so. This is a very beautiful, historic town that has beautiful landscape and befitting, and we've gone a long way to keep it that way. I do not want to see 6 apartments straight up in the air at this site. No way, Jose.
I go back to the word I used. However we got here, this is an opportunity. Now,
Yeah.
Do what you will with the opportunity, but this is an opportunity.
It's a good opportunity, and if I didn't think it was, I would be negative toward it. But I see it, I look toward the future, and I see it's got to be done anyway, so this is the spot in regards, and this is the way I'm thinking. I think I have 2 minutes.
There you go.
I don't. He's telling me.
It's rolling in 40 seconds.
Oh, a roll is, well, I want to thank you both, and I'm
Thank you.
sure I'm going to see you around the horn. And I'll be at Town Hall tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., not Bushy Tail, but I'll be there. And I thank you so much for coming. You've done a
Absolutely.
lot of hard work, and I appreciate it. We appreciate it. Now, next week, folks, J. James Auctioneers will be here. They're going to be conducting an auction January 21st at Memorial Hall, and it's going to be a doozy. You can go. It's free. So that's January 21st. That happens to be a Tuesday. I'm busy. I have a meeting. I can't go. So, but next week, Josh will be here from J. James Auctioneer. I want to thank Jimmy and, of course, my husband, Ken. Steve is at a meeting tonight. Thank you, Steve, anyway. We'll see you in 7.